Well, hello, everyone. How are you? Happy Friday. My name is Rob Howden. I'm the voice of the Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tyres. Also do a lot of stuff in karting that those of you know through ekartingnews.com. This particular podcast, you've seen a lot of them that we do with EKN, with the karting website. I do, of course, a lot of interviews as well for the Road to Indy with my Road to Indy Insider show. With those two, there's kind of a middle ground where I'm not allowed to talk to a lot of people in terms of the actual theme of the shows, right? I can't talk to guys moving up the sport if they're not in the Road to Indy or if they're in karting. So right in the middle is perfect for this Book It podcast. We have a number of young drivers who have worked their way to karting, get out of the realm, the scope of e-karting news, but they don't go to the Road to Indy. So they're kind of in the middle. And that's drivers that'll be running potentially in the F1600 championship or F4, or in this case, in this particular series that I'm going to have on my Book It podcast, a conversation with myself, Rob Howden, we're going to look at some of the North American drivers who are heading across the pond, going to run potentially in maybe the British Formula 1600 Championship, British Formula 3, British Formula 4, any of the other programs, kind of focusing on the young North Americans that don't get a chance to get a lot of coverage simply because they're not either running in the Road to Indy or they're not, in the wheelhouse, as I said, for ekartingnews.com. Now, today's episode, this is an exciting one because I've had a chance to cover this guy really so far just in the virtual world because he runs in the Road to Indy eSeries that we have, the program brought to you by TireRack.com. And he's the point leader right now because we'll get to this later on in the show. He's a top driver in F1600. He's going to go run this coming year, with Low Dempsey Racing in the British Formula 1600 program. It's Max Esterson. Leading the way in the Road to Indy. We'll talk more about his prowess when it comes to iRacing because he's very highly ranked in terms of his iRating. We'll bring him in here right now. Let's get this thing underway. Let me get the right heading up. Boom. Max, thank you so much for joining me here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to get into it.
Well, again, you're such an interesting story for me, of course, when it comes to talking to people like I have, right? I've got 25 years in karting. I've been in the sport of open wheel formula car racing for probably getting close to 20 years now. You, on the other hand, although you have a deep love of sport for a long time of motorsports, you really have been only in racing itself behind the wheel of a physical car from karts to cars for about 3 years. That's what I find so interesting. Let's start first and foremost, like I always do. Just tell me about you growing up. When did you first fall in love with racing? How did it happen? Was it your dad? Was it your mom? Was it your grandparents? What was the genesis for you falling in love with motorsports?
Yeah, so I was born in 2002. And I think the first race I went to, was the 2006 Daytona 24. So
you were 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Nice. I love it.
So I was super young, and I was just kind of in love with it there. I mean, I don't remember much of that race specifically, but my dad kind of got us all into it, my whole family, and he was an engineer in IndyCar, like in the 80s for Patrick Racing, which became Chip Ganassi Racing.
Yeah.
So we've kind of all my family have been fans. Since as long as I can remember, and we kind of watch anything with 4 wheels, sometimes 2 wheels.
Listen, I'm all about MotoGP and Supercross. So I'm all about 2 wheels as well. But it's interesting you say that when you're so young, because I think a lot of parents will probably say, especially when you're race fans, you bring your kid out to the track for the first time and you're kind of rolling the dice and hoping they like it, right? And it's not too loud. They obviously, of course, put headphones on. What's your first recollection for being at the racetrack with your family? Is it something that you remember? Obviously, you were already enthralled with it.
I think I remember going to Indy 500 qualifying. I think maybe 2011, 2012. And that was pretty incredible. I think I was there with my 2 brothers and my dad, and just seeing them go by on the front straight at 235 was, can't really forget that. Right.
No kidding, right? Especially when it's not even 10 years old at that point. 18 years of age right now. And as I mentioned from the start, the key intriguing aspect of your career for me is you really didn't get started in actually karting until you were, I think, 15 years of age. Before we get into that, tell me, you actually got pretty early into the iRacing program doing simulator racing, correct?
Yeah, I think my older brother got a Logitech steering wheel and pedal set for his birthday one year.
G25 or something?
Yeah, it was a G25.
Yep.
And he maybe got that when I was 6. Wow. I didn't use it much then. And then, I don't know, he maybe lost a little interest in it, and I kind of picked it up when I was 10, I think. And then from there, I wasn't very good for a while. It kind of takes a lot of time to get good on it. And then I think I started getting pretty good on iRacing when I was maybe 14.
Okay.
And then, I just kind of progressed from there. I raced in 2 of the Pro Series on iRacing, which is kind of the top level, like, of all sim racing.
Yeah.
And I finished, I think, 7th one year, which is pretty solid.
Man. Well, we'll talk more about that at the end, because I really want to kind of pick your brain a bit on the transition for you, because you've done it so differently, right? You really started in the sim world and then eventually got into the outdoor world in karting and into the F1600, where others potentially raced karts all their lives, got into cars, and then kind of just brought into the sim world as kind of an addition to what they were doing. So I'm really intrigued to get your take on that. Let's talk about karting. You're from New York, and every time I talk to a karter or a racer from New York, they eventually talk about Oakland Valley Raceway Park out in Cuddybackville. It's a place that many karters, Sage Karam, Santino Ferrucci, Marco Andretti, all started right in their careers. How did you end up out at Oakland Valley, coming from New York, and what were your first maybe seasons or first experiences like in karting?
Well, I ended up there, I think maybe in 2000, I would say around 2010 or 11. I went to a place called GPNY, which is an indoor karting place.
Mount Kisco?
Yeah, an hour north of the city. And at the time, Stephen Mackler, who races all sorts of cars now, was the instructor there.
Okay.
And we kind of lost touch for 10 years almost. And then we were looking just for outdoor karting places one day, and his name popped up.
I know that guy.
Yeah, that's pretty much how that ended. And there was a summer camp in 2018 that he was running there. And that's kind of wwhere I started.
And this is the hot rod here. This is you suited and booted. Obviously, when you're running your iRacing stuff, well, some guys wear gloves and maybe shoes, but you're fully kitted up, ready to go. Got the bell helmet. What did you actually get physically into doing a lot of racing at Oakland Valley?
The first year, after the camp in 2018, we just kind of rented equipment, and I think I did 4 of the club races.
Yeah,
and it's pretty competitive club racing there, so it's a good environment for that. And then in 2019, we bought our own stuff and kind of got more fully into it. I think I did 10 races.
This looks like, looking at the logos and everything on this, looks like an ex-Montoya cart or something like that. Did you buy a used cart?
Yeah, it was straight from Homestead.
This guy's got the Avinco sticker on it too. I love that, from the SCUSA Winter Series. That's awesome. So obviously next, most people would say, hey, you just got into karting a little bit. And you're like, well, I really like this. I think I'd like to progress, see if I can't make a career out of it. They'd probably tell you to stay in karting for a little bit. But literally at the end of 2019, no, you're going to go test a Formula 1600 with Team Pelfrey. How did that all come about? Because really, you and being with Team Pelfrey, man, all of a sudden, stand on the accelerator for your career, because we'll talk about it. You end up doing a full season with them in 2020. You end up going to the UK in September of 2020 last year. You dive in the deep end. And how does everything change for you career-wise starting in late 2019 when you tested that F1600 car?
Yeah, so, karting, to be honest, was a bit of a struggle for me. I was good for how little I've been doing it, but
yeah,
I was nothing special. Then I think at the beginning of 2019, I did a Bertil Roos school in the old Skip Barber cars.
Yep.
And that just instantly kind of felt more natural than karting for me. It just
was there more of a
easier.
Connection with all the experience you had with iRacing into the cars?
Yeah, I think it must have been. I mean, everything just seemed kind of slowed down and much more manageable, and I could think.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And those went well. And then in 2019, at the end of 2019, we're just kind of seeing what to do, really testing opening options for 2021.
Yeah.
In that way.
For 2021.
Yeah, not 2020, seeing what would open up. And I did a test with Pelfrey at Roebling Road, just a one-day test. And it went super well. And we're kind of convinced that 2020 would be an option.
I'm sure that Jeff was probably salivating when he saw the speed you were able to lay down in the car, right?
I think he was a little scared at first because, the first session, I didn't improve that much past the first session, to be honest.
Okay. You were quick out of the gate, or?
Yeah, and just the cool conditions in the morning, like, and I was quick out of the gate. Wasn't.
Of course, yeah, yeah. All right, so let's go to 2020, and this is the crazy thing, right? You go from just getting into karting. You did, like you said, a couple of seasons or half a season, a 10 race kind of program at Oakland Valley. You test the car, and all of a sudden you're in the deep end against some pretty solid talent, guys that we're going to see in the Road to Indy, like a Simon Sykes, like Dylan Christie, like Jackson Lee, and a bunch of different guys that you're racing against. Let's talk about that first season with Team Pelfrey. Like, talk about jumping in the deep end, going from iRacing to karting right into the F1600 Championship Series, which is a really, really solid series in the U.S.
Yeah, I would say like the first race weekend was a bit overwhelming. Like
I can imagine.
Didn't have my footing, but I mean, after that, it kind of felt like I was at home. It wasn't too bad. And I mean, Jeff and everyone at Pelfrey made it a pretty like easy transition where we do a lot of prep beforehand on like iRacing or going over video and data. So that makes it easier when you show up to the track and you kind of feel like you know what you're doing.
How was that transition? Obviously, when you're doing what you do with iRacing, you can go back and critique your own races. You can watch what you've done. Sitting down with an engineer and a driver coach or whatever you may have had at Team Pelfrey, and then going through all the data. How was that? Was that intimidating, or did that really fall into kind of your mindset of how you like to approach racing, even when you're running iRacing?
Yeah, I would say doing the iRacing with them certainly helpful because like obviously not everything is the same like between the sim and real life. So they were there to point out those differences.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, watching video is one thing, but actually like doing it physically on the sim, it seems to get into my memory a lot easier and more efficiently.
I've said this before. I was a ski instructor when I was younger, and everybody learns in a different way. Some people want to be able to see it. Show me how to do it, then I'll do it. Some people want full instructions. Tell me how to do it, then I'll do it. Right? Everybody learns in a different way, and it sounds like that really clicked for you. I do remember the FRP, the Formula Race Promotions. They had some races right on iRacing.
Yeah.
I announced one of those races, a couple of those races, I think, and you guys were in it. And I literally felt like I was watching a Formula 1600 race because you guys are back and forth, 2-3 wide. One of them was at VIR. And if there's a racetrack that F1600 becomes an unbelievable pack race, it's VIR.
Yeah, I think VIR is my only win last year.
Okay.
And I think I was 5th on the last lap.
Makes sense.
Show.
Now, listen, if you look at your schedule last year, was there a turning point for you? Can you pick one race? Because you talked about the fact that you might have been in over your head for the first race, but then you kind of started picking things up. Was there a time, was there an event, one race where, man, everything came together and all those switches started to turn in your head where you said, yeah, I can really do this?
I would say probably the second race, honestly. It was at Mid-Ohio.
That quick.
Yeah, I fell in love with that track, really. And I was on pole for that race. So, I mean, it kind of clicked there. But
amazing.
I would say, like, that was to a certain level. Then I would say at the last race of the year that I did at Pittsburgh for the second time is kind of where...
Getting back there again.
Yeah, I really found my groove. I think in all of testing and practice, I was half a second clear of the field.
Man.
So, yeah, it was...
Which you don't normally see in an F1600 car.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this great season, and obviously, we want to keep racing. What do we do? There's only so much racing you can do. In the U.S., you can do one of the SCCA majors. Drivers, of course, run down in the Florida races, Sebring, Homestead, whatever it may be. You elect to kind of keep it rolling at the end of the season. You're going to go over, and I think, did you miss the last race of the season? You would have had to, right? Run the festival?
Yeah, I was out of the championship at that point between a mechanical and a wreck, so there wasn't much to lose.
But you decided to go in September, you go over, you run a couple of national events over there, British F1600 national events, and then you end up doing the Walter Hayes Trophy and the Formula Ford Festival with Low Dempsey Racing. Again, this is everything coming together so quickly. This is what young drivers dream of, right? Getting a chance to go run with Cliff Dempsey and now the new Low Dempsey program. How was that a big jump from what you have done with Team Pelfrey, or was it more of an extension, more of a kind of a continuation of your development?
It was kind of somewhere in between those two, I would say. It was definitely a little bit of a jump. It's just everything there at that level, at least, is just kind of more competitive, and there's more cars that are capable of winning the races. just a denser field up front. So yeah, it was a bit of an adjustment, and just although it's the same formula technically, it's just so much different with the tires they run over there.
Yeah,
and
the Avons.
yeah, and there's, I would say, maybe a quarter of the draft between like the nature of the tracks and the tires and the cars. There's probably a quarter of the drafting power that we have here.
The Brands hatch is a lot shorter than like a VIR, right?
Yeah, it's like a kart track almost.
Exactly. But let's talk about going to the Formula Ford Festival again with Low Dempsey Racing. Great team. You know you're going to get equipment that can win, right? They've just been there for so many years. Team USA Scholarship obviously runs those drivers as well. One of the things I found was interesting was I don't think you'd ever driven in a rain race before. Had you before that?
No, I had one practice session at Pittsburgh in the rain, like 20-minute session. And that's on full rain tires.
And there was so much water, so much again, everybody expects rain for the festival, right? It's literally England in the fall, in October. You're going to get rain. It just happens. It is. You end up doing extremely well. Can you give me as long as you want, give me a synopsis of the festival for you. First coming in, getting a chance to run at this amazing race, so many cars. What was your first thought? And then kind of walk me through the weekend a bit.
So it's quite an event because you show up on like Tuesday night and everyone's setting up. Then you test Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So you're kind of there for a long time. Then I think the first official session's on Saturday morning. I think it's qualifying for your heat. And for mine, it started off like super wet and cloudy, and then pretty much by the end of the session, at the start of the session, we were probably 10 seconds off pace on a 50-second lap time.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the session, we were maybe 1 second off pace in a 15-minute qualifying session. Where did
you end up qualifying?
Second.
That's amazing to me. That's great. So keep going through the weekend. How did things go for you? Obviously, you got to qualify, you run the heat race. You transferred straight through, correct?
So the heat race, I started second, and then I fell back to third at the start, and then was kind of in danger of falling back to like fifth. I held on to third. It was wet, of course. And then, so that started me fourth for the semifinal. And I think all 4 Dempsey cars were in the same semi. So it was pretty stressful.
I bet. Don't run into my teammates, right?
Yeah. And we're all like right next to each other, of course. I slipped back to 6th in the semi, which like started me 11th for the final. The final started wet. And then it looked like it was going to dry pretty quickly because it was sunny, but it didn't really dry at all. And I ended up 6th.
Man, that's amazing. Congratulations on that. What a tremendous run for you. I think second highest American as well, right?
Yeah,
right behind Bryce Aaron. Yeah, behind Bryce. So let me ask you this then, because you've done a full season in the F1600 Championship Series in the U.S. You did you did a couple races. You did a couple of national races with Phil Wills Racing before you joined Low Dempsey for the festival and for the Walter Hayes, which we'll touch on briefly. What's your feeling on the different driving styles and the different racing styles between the two countries? Were they alike, or is there a noticeable difference?
I would say it's a pretty big difference, despite the cars like looking exactly the same almost. It's just the tire over there has such like little grip compared to the Hoosier over here.
Yeah.
And obviously there's no rain tire over there. It's the same tire, wet and dry, which is
right?
kind of like driving on a slick in the wet, which is pretty sketchy. But I would say it's a better formula over there just because the draft is smaller. You can pull away if you're the strongest driver, which I mean, I prefer. Obviously it's nice when you're not on your game one weekend and you're able to hang on.
That's right. All right. But, I appreciate that honesty. That's good.
Yeah.
but do you feel it taught you more car control, sliding the car around a little more?
I would say, you drive a little bit more with the pedals. It's with the US, you're basically kind of operating the throttle like an on-off switch. There's so much grip. But with more
like karting where you have so much grip.
Yeah. With the UK cars, you're kind of a little bit more finesse.
Okay, so let's talk about the Walter Hayes Trophy. One of the cool things about having those two big races back to back, especially for Americans that come over, you kind of come over, you get your taste for a big race at the festival. So many cars, like you said, for you, and I know Jackson Lee, the same thing. never driven in the rain before, so you kind of get a baptism by fire in terms of running in the wet conditions. Then you go to Silverstone for the Walter Hayes. Did you have more confidence going there? You got a good 6th place finish at the festival. Were you full of confidence, or at least more, going to the Hayes?
Yeah, a little more confidence. I felt like I kind of knew what I was doing. I mean, just more time in the car. I mean, the festival is the first time I'd driven the Ray chassis.
Yep.
So yeah, more time in the car definitely helped, but it was once again pretty wet there.
It was, and another week with a team too, right? Obviously, you're developing relationships and dialogue with the team as well when it comes to setup adjustments. Correct?
Yeah, and that certainly helped, getting to know the driver coach better, and just kind of everyone. It just helps you be more comfortable, and you know what you want, and they know how you drive.
How things go at the Hayes? How did you do at that event?
It was a little bit of a struggle at first, to be honest. It was, I mean, like I said, it was wet the whole time. It didn't even rain much there. It was just kind of like saturated with water, and it like never dried. It looked dry, but it wasn't. It was like 10 seconds off pace, like most of the time.
Yeah.
And, I think I qualified 6th for my heat, maybe, and I think I started my semi in 7th, and then that put me starting, and then I fell back. I think I started the final in 21st, and I ended up 14th. So it's not too bad out of 104 cars.
Again, and I think this is we talk all the time. I don't care where you've raced before, right? Any announcer like myself is going to talk about local track knowledge. Hey, this is his track. We go to Laguna Seca and someone drives Laguna all the time, or they're always racing at Mid-Ohio, or whatever it may be, right? When you go over there, especially in wet conditions, challenging conditions, every other one of those drivers, the guys from the UK, Ireland, Scotland, wherever they're coming from, they have so much time on those racetracks in those conditions. So I think that you probably have to take that to heart when you're able to do what you did, 6th at the festival, 14th or 15th, as you said, at the Hayes, against those drivers who really know that racetrack and know those conditions as well.
Yeah, it's hard going to like every race with a moving braking point for turn 1.
It's pretty true.
Yeah, I mean, they're good at figuring that stuff out quickly. Like I would find at the beginning of races, they would, like the guys up front, that's when they would, gap me out a bit.
Just enough of a gap.
Yeah. By the time like the second half of the race, I was closer to the pace.
Well, you must have liked it enough, because you decided, instead of going back for another year of F1600, and then we'll talk about this now, you're going to be racing in 2021 in the British F1600 Championship program. All those Avon tires again, back with Low Dempsey Racing. You must have had a good time with them and developed a good relationship, and a good dialogue, because you're back for the full season this year. What are your thoughts on that? How excited are you to be running over there? Are you going to be living over there the entire time?
I think most of the time I'll be living over there. I think I'll come back a few times, but yeah, it should be super good. I mean, Low Dempsey, as you said, I mean, they have a history of, they give you a strong car, a strong engine, strong chassis. So, the pieces are there. Yeah, I just think it's a good place and like cost-effective place in racing terms to just to learn for a season, and especially with the conditions. I mean, I think racing there for a season and I come back next season and say I have a wet race in the US, I'll be in a lot better shape.
Yeah, you'll be a guy that I'm watching the whole time, right? This guy's going to be good if it rains. Yeah, listen, anytime it rains, people start asking me, whatever race I'm at, okay, who should we be watching? Who's good in the wet? And you said, if you end up spending a year over there, you're going to come back with a wet weather prowess that's going to put you up front in those kind of situations. So let's kind of wrap things up and talk a little bit now about your iRacing. Obviously, you're running in the Road To Indy eSeries with us. You're leading the points right now, going into the finale next Wednesday at Mid-Ohio. Tell me about your iRating. First of all, where are you with your iRating in terms of ranked and all the racers that race in iRacing? And then talk about the team that you actually run with in iRacing events.
Yeah, so I think right now I'm ranked around 40th out of 130,000. So
of everybody.
Yeah,
that's amazing to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a little off my game lately. It just takes a lot of consistent practice to just be in it, like at the top.
At that pointy end, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I put more time into it now, I could kind of get back to where I was, I think, a year or two ago.
Yep.
But yeah, I run with a team called Sim Racing. I've been with them since I think the end of 2017, and Yeah, we're a pretty like chilled out group. We're not, none of us are making it our job.
Okay.
It's a thing we do on the side. And yeah, but I mean, we still take it seriously with the events we do. Like we do all the endurance races, like
And you get to run the top splits too. You're the top stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're on the broadcasted split and all of that. So yeah, we do like Daytona, Sebring. I think Bathurst is this weekend. I don't think I'm driving, but
okay.
Yeah, all those events.
So moving to when you went over to Europe, and this is where I kind of want to play a little bit on the iRacing program. We'll come back and talk about the eSeries a little bit, but in going to Europe, there are a number of the tracks that you'll run over there that are actually on the iRacing service, correct?
I think all the tracks that are on the main calendar this year, except for one, are on iRacing.
Really?
Yeah.
So is that something you're going to be doing? Like, do you on each day, are you taking time to make sure you're on the Brands Hatch, on the Silverstone, whatever else it is?
Yeah, for sure. The tracks I don't know as well. Like some tracks I've run so much at over the years on the sim, like thousands of laps, that it's just kind of
rote.
Like,
yeah,
exactly. But there's some tracks like Snetterton or Olton that I don't know that well.
Yep.
So
what track isn't on there?
I think it's Anglesey.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that one. Interesting. Okay. So all in all, what are your expectations? Let's go back to British F1600. What are your expectations next year? What's going to be a good season for Max Esterson in terms of running in that program with Low Dempsey?
I mean, the goal is to win the championship, but
that's it. Win the championship.
I mean, it's a tough field, obviously, but I think considering how strong I was at the festival, like with my first time in that car, my first time in the rain, I'm just much better prepared this year. I think that's going to help me out.
Here's a question for you. If you ask any of the IndyCar drivers and ask them if they could win the Indy 500 or win the IndyCar championship, they're all going to say the 500, right? The championship's great, but they'd rather win the 500 and not win the championship. Would you rather win the festival and not the championship, or win the championship or the Formula Ford Festival?
I think the festival.
Right? That's awesome. I love that. All right. What else are we talking about? Let's wrap with the Road to Indy eSeries. You are obviously the point leader right now. When you came in, you obviously knew you're strong at this. You and I have talked before about the fact that you're looking at potentially coming to USF 2000 next year. This will be a great stepping stone, what you're doing now. You mentioned getting rain experience and then coming back and being able to excel in those conditions in USF 2000. Are you having fun so far on the Road to Indy eSeries? I know that you're battling with one of your teammates at Vendaval as well, Braden Eves, right? You guys have been going back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little stressful being the points leader, to be honest.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to avoid the carnage, really. The reverse top 10 grid races, which is race 2 every week, it's pretty difficult to navigate. But I'm just trying to be consistent. I mean, if I can't win, I try to finish second. That's it. You got to do as the championship leader.
That's $2,000. It's $2,000 to win, man.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
The goal is to win back the entry fee. So
that's pretty. $2,000 will get that done times 20, I think. Right? It was like 150 to enter, I think. All right, listen. The great thing is the final race next Wednesday night is at Mid Ohio, and you already talked about how much you like that track.
Yeah. Hopefully, I mean, qualifying is going to be the most important session there. It's super hard to pass there, and with a little bit of aero wash behind second place, it's easy to get within maybe half a second or a second, but once you're there, making a move is a different story. So
in the real world too, right?
Yeah,
it's tough. All right, listen. Thank you so much for joining me, Max. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to watching what you do throughout the season. I want to make sure we get you back in like halfway through the season to talk about how things have done. Then we'll get you at the end of the season on another Book It podcast. If people want to follow you on social media, how did they do it? I know we already talked about the fact you don't have a Facebook account, so we're going to get that handled. But what about Instagram and Twitter right now?
Instagram and Twitter, they're both just Max Esterson, one word. So pretty easy there.
Good for you. That's good. Any sponsors you want to talk about right now? Anybody that really supports you, you'd like to give a chance to give a shout out to?
Max Pappas Innovations with the steering wheels, and as well as Max's personal advice. And iRacing helped me out at the festival, which is awesome.
Hold on. Cool. There you go.
Yeah, there it is.
Nice. As we wrap up, obviously, your thoughts in joining Low Dempsey. You look pretty happy there, getting behind the wheel of their car.
Yeah, it should be a super fun season. I mean, like I said, we'll have the equipment underneath me, so it's kind of up to me,
Do you like it like that? Most racers do.
It's sometimes fun to race in the not so great equipment. You know what I mean? Starting further back and making your way through the field, or at least trying to. But I mean, there gets a point where that's a little frustrating, obviously. But luckily, I haven't experienced much of that. So I'm going to enjoy being in winning equipment.
I've said that many times before that, if there's a young driver who qualifies on the pole all the time and jets away to get race wins, it looks great on the resume, but they're not learning a lot, right? It's nice to start at the tail of the field sometimes and be able to pick your way through and really work on that racecraft. But like you said, in this particular program, you could be qualifying pole one weekend or maybe be off a little bit, like you said, a couple of tenths and you're in sixth. And I know that the Low Dempsey guys always like to win. They have a burning desire to do that. I'm sure you do as well. So it seems like it's going to be a pretty good pairing for you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Awesome, man. Let me just wrap things up. All right, Max, listen, bud. Again, people will be following you on social media. I'll make sure I'm sharing all your stuff as well so that people can track what you do. When is the first race? When do you get rolling?
April 10th at Snetterton.
Do you have a calendar? Are you counting down for that?
I should make one.
When are you heading over?
I think mid-March. We'll do a little testing beforehand.
All right, man. Well, listen, congratulations on that. Great to see you there at Low Dempsey. We'll be following you all year long. Hopefully, we'll get to see you in USF 2000 next year.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Max. I'll drop Max to the back of the studio there. I'll tell you, we're going to follow some of these kids that are heading over to England and to Europe to race next year. Again, a lot of drivers that are running in British Formula 3, Euro F3, whatever it may be. We'll try to see if we can't follow them a little bit more to bring you up to speed on the drivers who are not running here, but are kind of working on their experience levels overseas. Max Esterson definitely wanted to watch. What a wild story, right? Really only 3 years in cars and into karts, right into F1600, diving into the deep end. Raced F1600 Championship Series last year. And he's going to go over to run the British F1600 program this year. Ultra competitive, I think everybody knows. And that Formula Ford Festival, such a huge race. And Max said it. He'll take that over a full championship as well. And I think most drivers would say that. If you look at the list of guys who have won and raced at the Formula Ford Festival, it is a legendary and iconic race for sure. Big thanks to Max Esterson for joining me here today, folks. And thank you for joining me on another edition of Book It. I got another one coming up potentially next Friday. We're going to try doing these a little bit more regularly. A lot of drivers to watch out for. And we'll also get some people within the paddock as well, not just racers. Talk to some more people within the Road to Indy paddock, maybe in the media as well. It's going to kind of use this Book It podcast just to kind of stretch out and talk to more great personalities in North American motorsports. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. Book it.